Good evening, listeners, viewers, wherever you are. Welcome to this week's edition of Beyond the Headlines for today, Monday, the 11th day of September. A very historic day around the world for many reasons. And I'm your host, Gordon Joseph, and tonight I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Arthur Pierre, representing the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. Also, Ms. Valerie Ford. She is the Probation Officer. And we will be joined at some point by with Ms. Corporal Nancy Joseph, representing the Royal Grenada Police Force Special Victims Unit. Tonight's program, we intend to get into ways to prevent offenses against minors and also what consequences one can face for such an offense. We intend to have a very, very deep conversation. Arthur and I, we go a long way back. We had a number of sessions. He was one of my lecturers once, and then we became partners in lecturing together through the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. So we kind of have an idea as to what we will be divulging this evening. And of course, we are joined by our learned friend, Ms. Valerie Ford, as the probation officer, as we look at the offenses of minors and the consequences that can be had, for committing offenses against minors and minors committing offenses and so forth. So, lady and gentlemen, good night and welcome to the program for tonight. I'm going to give the lady the first go. She's going to tell us about herself and her job and what her job entails, and then we'll come over to Mr. Pierre, and then we'll get into the meat of the matter. Ms. Ford, good night.
Right. Good night, everyone.
And welcome to the program.
Glad to be here.
Okay, the pleasure is also to have you with us tonight.
Here as probation unit.
Okay, so go ahead. Just disclose yourself and what you do as a probation officer and so forth.
Okay, so we are a SWAR-based team, and there are presently 4 probation officers within the team, servicing the nation of Grenada throughout the parishes. And I'm based in St. George's. We have another 4 assistant probation officers, and we are led by our supervisor, Ms. Judy Milo, who leads the team. We are a small team. We are very versed in what we do. We are very passionate about what we do. And as you can hear, I'm a returnee from the UK. So I came back about 14 years ago to give back to what I would have learned from working with young offenders in the UK. So we are here, we are proactive, we work long hours, we work based on the Juvenile Justice Act 2012, which is a diversion system which diverts children from the age of 12 to 18 away from the formal court system. So we still have a juvenile court, which is at the, for different parishes, different days. But it's a more informal court system within the court system itself. But that's what we have to work with presently. It's a system that addresses trauma and risk factors associated with young people, because we know that young people are going through so many different changes in terms of lifestyle. And, so all the things that they face in life today may be different to maybe 10 or 15, even 20 years ago when we were young. And the lifestyle and all the different influences that young people face today is very different to what we would have come across, what we faced years ago. So there's less emphasis on the traditional punitive system and more emphasis on rehabilitation and restorative practices. So that's really what we do. We aim to develop diversion options. Depending on the level of offence, there's different levels of offence. And we strengthen the rehabilitation services working with our partners, child protection services, social services, legal aid, the police, obviously, our partners, special victim unit, the schools, churches, and all the other agencies, international agencies as well. So we work as a collaborative team. We are in the background a lot of the time. We're not really at the forefront. So you don't hear much about probation, more under social services, but we are a separate unit that works steadily across the board for reform and to really help and support children and parents and just really communities at large. So there's less risk involved and more, success in how we deal with our young children, how we intervene when they come into conflict with the law.
Okay, that's a wonderful introduction, and having heard you, I know this conversation is going to be a very deep and diverse one, because Arthur and I, we were having some pre-show conversation, and we were talking as it relates to punitive measures and so forth. So as we get into the program, we'll have a good exchange. Now, I want to hear from Arthur. I mean, I know him, but for my audience, I would not take that away from him to introduce himself. I know he's a man that wears many caps. So Arthur, tell the nation and the world by extension who Arthur Pierre really is.
A very simple individual.
Yes, we can see that.
Very simple individual.
Behind the simplicity, there's depth.
Well, let's say so. Yes. Arthur Pierre, I've been a teacher for about 12 years. I worked with the Drug Control Secretariat for maybe another about 8 years. On the books, I am the HIV/AIDS response coordinator for the Ministry of Education. I've worked actually in the Ministry of Health. As it relates to legal aid and counseling clinic, I have done volunteer work from since 2007, looking at the Partnership for Peace program, affectionately called the Man-to-Man program. This program really looks at doing psychoeducational, I wouldn't say counseling, but psychoeducational sessions with men who are perpetrators of domestic violence. And of course, I've done a lot of work with young people. That is when I was at the Drug Control Secretariat. We had, during the period of 2005 to around 2008, there was a spate of quote-unquote gang violence. Yeah. And we did a lot of work within the scope of the secondary schools and even some of the primary schools as well, looking at, doing some preventative programs and trying to alleviate the issues of violence among teens. I have also done, along with Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, I've done work in the prisons with some of the perpetrators there, assisting in the whole rehabilitation process, talking to young men specifically about their behavior, their development, and what are some of the things that they could put in place to ensure that they live a productive life and live a life that would, that society can be happy with. So in a nutshell, that's it.
Okay, so that is Arthur. Now, going back to the lady, some of the challenges that you face, before we go that, I want to get it clear. Your organization, is it an NGO, is it government-based or something of that nature? What's your organization all about?
We are under the umbrella of the Ministry of Social Development.
Okay. All right. Now, what would you say are some of the main challenges that your agency faces?
Well, because we're a small unit and we're growing, we are, as I said, we're very passionate about what we do. We are looking for different ways of, intervention with our children, young people. And one of the things I wanted to say, when we say children, I think we seem to have this perception that it's just sort of primary school age children when we say children, but we work with children from age 12 to 18. So our children until they're under the age of 18, until they hit that benchmark of 18, they're still children. We are, some of the things that we are looking at presently is our programs, and the more intervention in the schools and more intervention with young people, how to reach young people, how to impact their lives, so we want to have more inventive programs that can, so we can hear the voice of young people. We can understand what's really going on with them in terms of, more gang violence, more aggressive behaviors, more things that impact their lives. That we'll have a lens that we can go in and really look to see what it is that's impacting them, what it is that's, making them behave sometimes the way they do and even think the way they do. So it's a lot more than just, sitting in an office and just, just doing the usual. The usual is not working anymore. We have to be more inventive. We have to be more interactive, more engaging. We have to understand young people. Some of us have our own children. Some of us have been through certain things in our past, so we can have a better understanding of how and what young people go through, and how it impacts their lives. So we really need to be more inventive in the programs that we're currently running. We currently run parenting programs. We work steadily with legal aid and counselling, with counselling programs, and we also work with adult and teen challenge. So we're looking at more programs. We're working to strengthen the resources that we have and really reach out to young people so we can engage more with them. And that's really one of the, not so much challenge, but one of the things that we have to focus more on.
Now, having said all that, from your assessment and evaluation, would you say our nation's minors are in crisis? Is there a serious cause for concern with our level of deviance and so forth? Would you say that?
Well, it's not so much as apart from anywhere else in the world is going through presently in terms of change and adaptation. But we provide the criminal court with reports relating to a risk assessment or risk reduction initial assessment, which we do on all young people, young offenders, but children that come into conflict with the law. And they would be given an assessment based on their risk. We look at their background, we look at their school and their lifestyle, everything about them literally on a form. And we really go through it with them and family members, guardians, persons that are in their life. And then we do the assessment, and then we look at the risks, and we have our recommendations which we present to the court. And then we would really start to work steadily with the young person. And sometimes only at that point in the judicial system is when the child may have intervention. The child may have had intervention before with under child protection or even family members. They may have had different interventions with the schools even. But at some point, either they get back on track, or sometimes the offences become more serious because the level of intervention wasn't done or it wasn't effective enough. So we really have to do some more, really, really more investigative work, which is what we do. Because I don't know if you've heard of a social inquiry report. When we go out into the communities, we speak to persons around, we speak to the community members, family members. We do investigations with the schools, and there's so many different things that we look at in terms of risk. And then we put all that information together, and then we work steadily with the young person. Depends on the offence. Now, we are seeing more, in terms of criminal offences, more, things like house breaking, stealing are common offences. But then we have to also look at the other side, which are more sexual offences against young people. And those are those all are worrying. But in terms of impact on the victim or the child, really is the sexual offences that have been on the rise.
Okay. Now, Arthur, in your role, as I said earlier, you're a man of many caps. You've interacted with the children in different capacities, whether it's drug control or whether it's in the psycho-educational programs that are run at Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic, and in so many other things. You're also actively involved in the Scout movement? Cadet Corps, right. So you really have involvement with young people. From your observation and assessment, would you say that our youth are really in crisis, or young people are in crisis?
I would say the same thing that our sister said. This is not just localized to Grenada. It's across the Caribbean, it's across the world. we look at young people, and I think sometimes as adults, we do not pay attention or closer attention to our young people. We leave them up to the media, we leave them up to the internet, we leave them up to social media, we leave them up to all the things that are out in the world, and a lot of times these young people cannot filter some of these things, and you know, they get involved in some of the things that they see. All right. Let me give you an example. Again, around the same period, between 2005 to 2008, one of the things that we saw was a lot of violence. And what happened during that period, some of the churches and social partners within a particular country decided, look, we need to talk to some of the power brokers, the persons who sing music and all of that. And they engaged these persons and said, look, you need to change your lyrics on the violence that you're spewing, because it's having an effect across the Caribbean. Okay? They actually changed the lyrics. They changed the lyrics. Some of them actually changed the lyrics, but the lyrics was changed from violence into very explicit sexual content. Okay, and we saw over a period of time diminishing of the issues of violence, and what we saw was the increase in sexual crimes, increase in sexually transmitted infections, and issues of HIV and AIDS.
So it's therefore safe to say that the music and the media, social media and so forth, has a very critical role.
It has a role to play in the ideologies, in the way that young people think, in the way that young people behave. And the young people themselves say that.
So how do we mitigate from
right?
How do we mitigate around that?
If you build the individual, if you fortify the individual with some of the skills to do the filtering, to do the critical thinking, to build up their self-esteem and to build up their focus and all of that. You know, if you focus them on their personal development, right, what they want to achieve, setting goals and all of that, you are on the right road to having an individual being able to make intelligent choices, as not to participate in some of the activities that are so glamorized by the media.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. One of the things that we see also nowadays, and my good friend will come in on that, we're seeing that, okay, one, we have quite a very high number of parents being young themselves, and who might not have gotten what we would call, quote unquote, a good culturing, all right, as it relates to parenting. But they are left with that responsibility now of parenting. Now you cannot give what you don't have.
While that is true, the issue of young parenting has always been there. Too often, I think people figure that, you know, it was not something that this is something new.
But there's nothing new under the sun.
It is not new. It is not new. What we don't have is the support from the grandparents, from the village, right? We don't have that sort of support. In fact, you would find parents now not necessarily wanting the village to assist them in the raising of their child. I'll use myself as an example. My father had a rum shop, my mother was a nurse. I always say that. Okay? And there were persons in the village that was responsible for us, my brother and I, when my father was in the shop, because he would come home like around after 9 when the shop closes. And my mother, sometimes being the nurse that she was, might come home about 7 o'clock or thereabout. Okay? But we were not unattended to. And the responsibility that the family had over us was just as if our parents was there. Now, I grew up in an era where basically children was abused, beaten, and all of that, That was a form of discipline. All right, and the village or the individuals that took care of us had that right to discipline us if we fell out of grace, so to speak. Okay, we don't see that happening often, right? And sometimes what we do see is persons not understanding how really and truly to talk and discipline without the issue of the use of violence. All right.
Violence here, you're talking about flogging.
Flogging. All right. We don't see that. As a teacher, I have seen parents come to the school in anger because a teacher might talk too hard to a child, that child might even get flogged even by the principal or a teacher that is assigned for flogging and so forth. And a parent come and the type of behavior that is displayed basically tells the child, I could disrespect anybody. There is no authority that I must respect. We look at some of the displays in town where young men are fighting with police officers. I mean, that was unthinkable when I was growing up. And a police officer was a police officer, and it speaks of an authority figure. So there is a lack of respect and a breakdown of that sort of behavior among young people. And sometimes how, as we as adults speak to our children, speak to children generally, we speak to them as if, they are nothing, and we do not have to show them respect, but we do. Young men could tell you that, even when we do little interventions in schools and so, I could call names like Mr. Dave Alexander and Dr. Terence Walters. I worked with them. And we addressed these young people as sir and miss, just because we had to show them some degree of respect. And let me tell you, I have heard young men talk about, sir, you could remember when I was in so-and-so form, or when I was in so-and-so school, and you were the only person that ever addressed me as sir. Right? But we have to be able, if you want respect, we have to show respect. If somebody has done wrong, at the end of the day, we still have to give them the respect that is due to them, regardless of how wrong they are.
Even while discipline?
Even while discipline.
Yeah.
Even while extending discipline to them. Okay? But we have to build the individual. That individual must be the catalyst where he or she is able to deal with all the things, all the spears that is coming to them from our society, from our village, from our community.
Ms. Ford?
Hello.
Yes? I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about the fabric of society, and our communities are really fragmented. I mean, they've really been reduced over generations, which is something that I don't think that we had enough foresight over the impact on our children and children to come and legacies to come. I don't think anybody would want to know that their children were being mistreated or not being respectful to adults. I mean, I don't think anybody would have really had that foresight maybe 20 years ago that's where we would be today. But I believe that we need to take a responsibility as a nation in how we bring up our children, and that goes for everybody, not just communities and the village, which is somewhat fragmented now because of the exposure to things that I would say endanger our children. There's so much exposure with phones and technology in terms of sometimes the phones or the technology or the tablet will be babysitting the children. It's easy to to keep the children quiet. It's what they want, it's what they need, and maybe years ago you want your children to have everything that maybe you didn't have. So you may, give them the tablet, give them the phone. I've seen it, on numerous occasions. When I go to church on a Sunday, there's a kind of struggle to have the children off the phone, to take the phones away from the children because we're in church. So we really have to. It's a struggle for parents because you want to give them all the things that you didn't have, but then there has to be a balance in everything. And I think that sometimes where parents do struggle, I've struggled myself in certain regards where that's concerned. but you have to take a stand. It's not easy, because the pull of the tablet and the phone and all the external stimuli is very, very apparent. And it's what our children want. And we want to give them what they want and not so much what they need. So we have to have a balance. We have to take a full responsibility in our nation that we are products of who we are in terms of what we create. Sometimes, I think we just somewhat desensitized by the music, as my learned friend was saying about the music. I mean, sometimes, you're on the bus and you're hearing the music and you're thinking, my God, the words and the expletives and the children are becoming desensitized to it. Getting on the bus that is the loudest and the most explicit, the music and the best bus or the favorite bus to get on. And I get on any bus, but children, are gravitating towards certain things: the beats, the music, the drugs, the violence, everything is, as my learned friend said, it's glamorized. So we're, as parents now, we are not as respected, or adults are not respected, because the music isn't telling children to respect anybody. All these things that they're gravitating to and that they're feeding on a daily basis. So where is the responsibility of the busmen? Where is the responsibility of our peers? Where is the responsibility of the persons that can make a difference? But instead of making a difference in a positive way, they're negatively impacting our children. And that's where the sexual violence and those things, the gun violence, even today, I know there was a shooting today. I've been coming to Grenada for the last, since I was a small child, coming here on holiday, and I used to cry to go back to the UK because this was my home. As far as I was concerned, my grandparents were here, my family, all my roots were here, even though I was born in the UK, and I used to want to always be in Grenada. This was my home. This was my home. So now when you're hearing about gun violence and you nudge someone a bit short, or somebody, the cussing and the threatening language, all those things are on the increase because people are not only exposed to different stimuli, they're also frustrated. There's a lot of people, that are frustrated because of job losses, not the same, the conditions, they're not the same as they were maybe, in terms of what young people are expected to do when they leave school, qualifications and what, the skills. Maybe not everybody can get 10 CXC subjects, but they have very good skills. So those are all the things that we need to work collaboratively with as a nation, all hands on deck, to say, look, this is a legacy that we're bringing forward. How is this legacy going to be productive? And if there are things that are negative and impact our nation negatively, let's look at these things. Let's work it out. Let's have a plan, and sit down and say, well, look, let's hold people responsible and talk to, bus drivers and all this, what's happening in the school, bullying and cyberbullying. You get children that are so distressed and so depressed because of cyberbullying, because everything is social media, everything is TikTok or, status and selfies and, so it's a lot of the generational thing that's happening now is something that we would expect because it tells us in scripture, it tells us all these things that will be happening. But right now we are in it, we are living it, we're living in it, and we need to take control. We need to get our children back.
Okay, we take our first commercial break. When we come back, we look at punitive measures that are, usable, and how should we discipline and punish a child, because we cannot leave that out of the equation. Folks, you're into Beyond the Headlines for today, and we take our first break. We'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere.
Part of the world, we need to be prepared for natural disasters like storms and hurricanes, even outside of the season. I'm sure you'll agree that keeping our loved ones, homes, and businesses safe is important. So, I came up with a few quick tips to help you stay safe. First, make a family disaster plan and ensure that everyone in your household is familiar and comfortable with it. Remember to add batteries and flashlights to your emergency kit. Don't be caught off guard by natural disasters. Prepare now. For more information, visit grenlec.com.
Do you have muscular pain that no one can find a solution for? Are you tired of taking meds for joints and other pains? Hills and Valley Medicare Center on Grenville Street, St. George is here to help you heal. We will help you map a path to your full recovery. Visit us Monday to Saturday for a consultation with our on-site doctor, physiotherapist, and massage team. You will be glad you did. Our Medicare Center, a proud member of the Hills and Valley group of companies. On the hilltop or in the valley, we are with you wherever life takes you. Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Your health is our business.
There is a fire that rages in all of us, a deep desire to be the best that we can be. And sometimes that fire finds expression in words.
Who do you think you are? Angela Davis? Winnie Mandela?
Daddy, whether you like it or not, a new generation has arrived. We are here and we have come with a vision.
You sure is not television all you come with?
The Fire to Dance, a new exciting full-length drama, written and directed by Chris DeRiggs and presented by Heritage Theatre. Opening Saturday 16th September at Grenada Trade Center and running for 2 weekends, 7 p.m. nightly with a star-studded cast.
Come with me, Sophie. We have worlds to conquer.
Come out and feel the fire in the Fire to Dance, starting September 16th. Don't miss it. This ad is sponsored by the National Lotteries Authority, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
But when you need someone to help you to your feet, I'll be that beacon to your highest peak. I'll be right next to you, no, I will never leave. Come on, take my hands, we got everything we need. Cause you can look to me, whenever you're in need. Just call on me and I'll be on my way. I'll be by your side, never to divide. The light that shines our way. Wherever your road leads, we'll be right there with you. Wherever your road leads, we'll make your dreams come true. Next time, next time, next time, next day, oh.
Nexa Credit Union, with you wherever your road leads.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners. This is Beyond the Headlines for tonight, Monday, the 11th day of September. We're looking at offenses against minors. And if you're just joining us, our guests tonight, we've got Miss Valerie Ford. She is a probation officer. And also Mr. Arthur Pierre. He is representing, tonight he's saying legal aid counseling clinic, but he represents a whole lot more than that because he's got a wealth of experience in that field. Before we went to that break, I said that when we get back, we'll be looking at punitive measures, punishment versus discipline. And of course, Arthur and I were talking during that break, and you know, this is a topic that is so diverse, right? I was suggesting to Arthur that maybe we should see more programs geared towards assisting the parents in proper parenting. And Arthur's response was, who taught us as parents? So there comes my question. Where did that breakdown come? All right, I grew up with my grandmother. She's going to be buried on Thursday. May God rest her soul in peace. A good, excellent lady. And she did it singly. When I say singly, she was the man and the woman in the house. And from all intents and purposes, she did an excellent job. You know, I deviated eventually, but she did an excellent job. But the question here is, where did it all go wrong? Where did parenting started to accumulate these flaws?
If I have to take a stab at it, I think over the years, persons within our age group knew the pressures that we had growing up. and never really and truly appreciated it. Let me give you an example. I passed common entrance many moons ago. And I always talk about it because I think it's a very good example. When I passed common entrance, all my friends got all kind of nice things from their parents. My father proudly gave me a sheep.
I know about this. I know this.
I know that I would have shared that with you already.
No, but what I'm saying, I share the same experience.
Right. So, and he felt so good about it, and I felt,
a sheep?
Yes, a sheep, right? And it's only when I actually started to go to GBSS, I recognized what my father was trying to teach me, and that was responsibility. So whether rain was falling, outside was sunny, outside was dark, you had to take care of this animal. So it taught you responsibility at an early age. Now, we grow up, we have our own children, and we do not necessarily give them any form of responsibility. They do minor chores, and they complain. They complain bitterly that we're giving them too much work, they're getting up late from their bed, they have all the things, all the amenities of life, because we are saying to ourselves, we never had it, we don't want our children to do without. Okay? A lot of parents, all they require from their children is good grades. All they require from their children is good grades. So they would do everything in the house. Now, I tell my children that as long as you're living in the house, there are roles and responsibilities that you have.
For everyone?
For everyone. This is not a free-for-all, come and lie down and watch TV and relax or be on the computer 24/7. You have responsibility. You are part of a family, okay? And too often, we just sit back and we just basically serve our children as servants. We give them everything that they want. They cry for this, we give them that. They want a new phone, we give them it. And we believe that is showing them love. No, nothing, my father used to always say, nothing in life comes easy and nothing in life is free. Somebody has to pay for it. Our children need to understand that they have a responsibility to themselves, and as long as they are within the confines of a family, regardless of what family you're, whether you're a single parent family or a family with mother and father, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility. There are things that you have to do. There are some weight that you must carry, because one parent or both parents cannot carry that weight all the time. You have to be able to share that responsibility. So when you go to school, you are expected to behave properly. That's part of carrying the weight. Why should I be focused on, well, I wonder if you're going to behave good today?
Yeah.
You understand me? When I have this, that, and the other to do, I have my work to do, I have responsibilities to do, and I must not have to worry that you are being irresponsible in the environment or in the institution that you are placed.
But the question is, how do we get our parents to get into that mode? That is the task. Ms. Ford, I want you to comment on this one here. What's your take on Arthur's analogy there?
Yeah, I think that as a parent myself, I think that sometimes we have problems navigating everything and balancing everything, especially as a working parent, more so as a single parent, because you're not just parenting your child, you have the school parenting your child. And, sometimes, as we spoke about, we don't always have the extended family members as we did back then. Mm-hmm. I live with my grandmother, my aunties, and I say aunties, uncles, and there was a few of us in the house, and I remember just everybody taking responsibility for bringing me up. It wasn't just one person, it was about 6 at any one time, living in the house. And that was back in the UK. So, because persons would have migrated, went over to Grenada, and you had the cousins and the aunties and everything from Grenada living with you in one house. It was, up and down. So that's how I grew up. I grew up very culturally sound in the UK, knowing who I was, knowing my roots, knowing where I came from, getting the historical background of where I came from culturally, and also having to being eased in and adapted in each, even though I was born there, right? So when you have children here that sometimes kind of, I would say, kind of tunnel vision to a certain extent. So whatever stimuli comes in, that's what is they feed upon, because they don't have the external in terms of responsibilities. Like, you know, when you go away, you travel, and you say, well, okay, well, wow, the boss is not going to wait for me, you know, to go and change and do what I have to do and take my time to walk up the road and reverse back for me. You know, you don't get that in the UK. So when you go over, it's a culture shock. You know, so persons may come back and say, wow, you know, I have to like pull my socks up a bit, because when you go over to the UK and you go to the States, there's nobody owes you anything, right. You know, because we're kind of spoiled here in terms of culturally, I believe. And I think it's maybe if we don't challenge the norms and the behaviors as much here as we do. I love being here. This is my home. I believe that sometimes that children can be very entitled. They believe that you owe them something, that's their right to have it, because it's what they see. They maybe see it on the TV or wherever, that, you know, everybody has a phone, for instance. You know, I didn't grow up like that. I didn't have a phone. You know, my daughter didn't grow up that way. She had to wait to a certain age to have a phone, wait to a certain age to pierce her ears, wait to a certain age to do certain things, you know. But when the lines are muddied and the boundaries are pushed and expanded and shifted, then that's where the problems come in, you see, because there are the values and the cultural norms, and what were the norms 20 years ago are not the norms now. The norms shift. So that's where the problems come in. So I believe there's a certain extent that we do need to examine those things. We need to challenge the norms and values of the culture that we have now, because culture is changing, culture shifts. So when we say we have culture, then we have to look at what the culture was maybe 20 years ago is not the culture now. So we have to look at why this culture shifted and what can we do about it in terms of the negative aspects of it, and what can we do to maybe, you know, to change things around, shift it, challenge it, and fix it, basically.
So is it fair for us then, having said all that, is it fair for us then to lay all the blame of the deviant behaviors that we are seeing on our young people on them, whereas from indications from both of you, it seems like parenting seem to have been lacking, proper parenting. You know, a good friend of mine from St. David, I know he would call later on and talk about the economics of the day that has it like that, and the parents have to do the extra to ensure that, you know, the children have a comfortable life in terms of the necessities and so forth. So how do we bridge that gap? Should there be more support programs for parents? And because we have...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just... because the background as well. But I was saying, because we're forging ahead and we're becoming more, in terms of more technological society, we're forging ahead. That's not going to stop. We're going to progress, right? But then some of the things that we're progressing with, it doesn't necessarily mean it's progress. You have to progress in the right way. So we have to strengthen the resources that we have. We have to strengthen the programs that we have. We have to strengthen the nation as a whole in terms of parents, families, the family structure, the school structure, the courts, the police, in terms of, you know, how they're adapting. So everybody's adapting along the process, right? Because the process is going to continue. It's not going to be delayed in any way to say it's going to go back 10 years. It's going to continue. So we have to go along with the process, but we have to make sure that the process is what we want as a nation, how we are going to build our nation, how we are going to build our children, you know, in terms of how we go forward, right? And we get international help. We have our own in-house help in terms of communities, and we have resources in Grenada. We have some very learned people here. We have some very persons that have a wealth of experience and knowledge and wisdom in Grenada. You know, there's people here that, you know, maybe underlooked in certain regards because we have a wealth of knowledge in Grenada, you know.
Is it safe to say that this knowledge is not harnessed properly? All right, it's not harnessed.
Well, I believe that we need to have a strategy in, you know, I believe obviously, you know, the ministry and other sectors have a strategy, but we need to have a strengthen it so that we know that we are going in the right direction.
Another caller of mine would call later on, and she would say to you pointedly that all the things that we've said so far are good, but we're missing the real essence of it. The introduction or the recognition of the supreme being God in all of this. Where does he fit in there?
You know, when I was asked to come on this program, one of the things that kept popping up in my mind is the fact that we always say that Grenada is a God-fearing nation.
And a Christian nation.
And we use that so, the question is, what exactly is that? And are we truly God-fearing? I think too often, even in the definition or defining our culture, we don't include the true essence of what God-fearing means. Okay? One of the things that seem to be lacking in a lot of our families is the issue of values. Simple issue of sound values. You have a child who might have stolen something from somebody, some monies or a phone or a school bag or a pen or something, and the parents don't even inquire, where did you get that? I never gave you that. Where did you get that? And you need to return it because I did not give it to you. Where are those values? When I look at, and I am going to knock Carnival for a while, when I look at what was displayed in our so-called quote-unquote culture during the Carnival season, I was taken aback. Right? Because the lewdness and the nakedness that I saw certainly would have an impact on our children. Okay, when you look at the amount of children, you know, on Jubilee morning playing, I didn't go, but I saw it on television, and the way that they behave, and we believe that is part of our culture, and then we complain that our children are you know, getting involved in this, that, or the other. Where is our responsibility, and where is the fear of God in all of that?
Wow. Hit the nail on the head. Miss Ford?
Well,
yes, I'd love to. In your discourse previously, you mentioned that you go to church and you seem to have some Christian values. So I would like you to compliment what Arthur said here.
Well, I'll tell you something brief. I was not a Christian when I came to Grenada. I mean, I hear people say Grenada belongs to God.
God is a Grenadian.
Grenada belongs to God.
Or God is a Grenadian.
Pardon?
They usually say God is a Grenadian. Yes.
God is a Grenadian, right? And I didn't come as a Christian to Grenada. I found God in Grenada. And I should say he found me and brought me here. But I'm in church ministry here. I was never a Christian. I didn't have those kind of church Christian values as far as I just thought I was a good person. God has a different set of beliefs in terms of values and how he expects us to live in terms of our lifestyle. And I believe that it's time for us to really search ourselves to see who we are living for. You know, are we living for ourselves? Are we living for God? I mean, who are we living for? And I think it's that time when we need to really search ourselves to look at that. It starts with you. You know, I had to search myself for years, going through a process of molding into what he wanted me to be. So the self side of it is set aside, and you are set apart, you know. And as I said to you, the jobs that we do, especially with my learned friend, the jobs that we do are not just any job. We are placed in terms of making a difference and impacting lives on a daily basis, you know. So that shows you the love of God and the love of the Father and the love He has for us, the love He has for this nation, you know, because He has people all over the nation that are doing some amazing work, tremendous work in His name. But I believe the people of Grenada now need to really look at some of the norms and some of the values and some of the traditions and the culture, and that is shifted in a way that it is impacting children's lives negatively in terms of the behaviors and the problematic behaviors that we're seeing and the offenses that we're seeing, as the sexual offenses. And I know that, you know, I see adults, I see men in particular that will look at school children, you know, in a way that I wouldn't think that you should be looking at school children. They have their uniform on and it's almost like it's okay, it's free game. And we have to challenge those type of behaviors. You know, a child is a child until they reach the age of 18, you know, and I think we have to really look at these behaviors and don't condone the behaviors. We have to speak out and say, this is wrong. You know, what you're doing is wrong. I mean, there's many occasions that persons that have come into the office and said, look, this is what's happening with my child, this is what's happening, you know, at school, and this is what's happening in the community. And we are obligated as an agency to report these things and to investigate it, not just to turn a blind eye. That's our obligation. But it should be the obligation and the responsibility of everybody, you know, in the nation to say, look, let's look at the behaviors. Let's challenge the so-called norms and culture that we have arrived at in this nation in 2023. Let's do a reset button and just examine everything, because God has a part to play in it. He has a very critical role in how our nation goes forward, a very critical role, because we cannot do nothing. We can't do anything without Him.
Well, we'll try, but what we would end up with would be a mess, definitely be a mess. Having had, you know, the conversations, I'm tempted to believe that we cannot go back to 20, 30 years, but we are claiming emphatically that that model of a village or a community raise a child, that worked.
That's right.
It worked.
That worked.
Then.
And it can work.
It can work now.
It can work. It can work. And we have a multi-agency approach with everybody coming together to make it work. It can work.
It can work.
It can work, and it has to work.
The whole issue of all of that, for it to work, people need to have a different mindset, and they need to agree on the values that we want to promote and to maintain.
Okay.
Right. Just as my learned friend said, all of us have to do this thing together. If my child is traveling if your child is traveling on my bus, I must respect that child and not necessarily play adult music, so to speak. There are activities that we participate in that are adult activities. All right, people have the choice; they could do that. But when it comes to our children, we must not get our children involved in some of these things.
There must be a place where
there must be a cutoff. There must be a cutoff. There must be a place where we draw the line and say, look, this is adult.
Yeah.
Right.
There must be
we cannot allow our children to grow up so fast. And when it comes to the issue of family, we have to be able to just not talk the talk, but walk the talk.
Yeah.
Right? My son would quickly say, well, Daddy, that is hypocritical.
Yeah.
You understand me? And that is to pull me up, and I have to say, look, well, sorry, you know what I mean? But this is the way we go forward.
Okay, folks, this is Beyond the Headlines. My guest this evening, Ms. Valerie Ford, a probation officer, along with Mr. Arthur Pierre, representing the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. We take our final commercial break in the segment. When we come back, we open up the lines so that you can call in and join in on the conversation. We take that commercial break. We'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere.
Your new Grenlec bill is even easier to read and still has all the valuable information you need to track and manage your usage.
Hey Mom, okay, your friendly tech support is here. So you got the new Grenlec bill? Let's take a look. The new bill makes it even easier to see your bill total, the due date, and much more. And take a closer look. It actually is a lot easier to understand. Let me show you. You can still see exactly what the charges are for, but in a great new format, it even shows how the cost of generating and delivering the electricity to you is calculated using your actual usage. And Mom, let Lucy know she can check out Grenlec's new Understanding Your Bill video. Anyway, look who says hi, and see you soon.
Your new Grenlec bill, easier to understand and easier to track your usage.
There is a fire that rages in all of us, a deep desire to be the best that we can be, and sometimes that fire finds expression in words.
Who do you think you are? Angela Davis? Winnie Mandela?
Daddy, whether you like it or not, a new generation has arrived. We are here and we have come with a vision.
You sure is not television all you come with?
The Fire to Dance, a new exciting full-length drama, written and directed by Chris DeRiggs and presented by Heritage Theatre. Opening Saturday 16th September at Grenada Trade Center and running for 2 weekends, 7 p.m. nightly with a star-studded cast.
Come with me, Sophie. We have worlds to conquer.
Come out and feel the fire in The Fire to Dance, starting September 16th. Don't miss it. This ad is sponsored by the National Lotteries Authority, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to Beyond the Headlines for this historic day, the 11th of September, 9/11. That's a normal quote nowadays, 9/11. And tonight we're looking at offenses and minors and all the parameters around that. Our guest tonight is Ms. Valerie Ford, the probation officer, and Mr. Arthur Pierre, representing the Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic. And okay, so this is the segment where you can call into the program. The number that you can call is 440-1252. Arthur, during the break, we were saying something that the churches, prior to going to the break, we were talking about, this thing that, Grenada is a God-fearing nation and so forth, and you thought that philosophy is not inculcated in our people enough. And the question came up, what are the churches doing? Okay. Arthur, before you go to this, we do have a caller to the program. Good evening. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. None in the sense.
I knew that. My friend, how are you?
I'm fine, in God's grace.
Give us 25 cents, not 2 pence.
I'm very pleased to have heard that lady spoke about she found God in Grenada, and she's emphasizing that what we need to look at ourselves and see who we are in the eyes of God. Are we living the way God wants us to live? And somebody intimated that Grenada is called a Christian nation. God is a Grenadian. But you see, the season and time that we are living in, there is a push against God and godliness. But that is what we have to return to. We must return to God. If we want anything good whatsoever, we must turn back to God. I'm not just talking about God, but having an intimate relationship with Him. Because we are made in His image and likeness. And because of sin, sin coming into the human nature, things are as they are now. But in order to reverse that, we have to acknowledge God. We have to accept the Lordship of Christ over our lives. Let Him make that change in our hearts. Except our hearts are transformed, except our minds are transformed, we want to continue and we cannot change ourselves. Many times we hear psychology, oh, believe in yourself. You have nothing in you to believe in but evil and sin. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. We need Christ. And I am begging the Minister of Education, I'm begging the Department of Education, bring God back in our schools. The national anthem, I don't know if they sing it in schools anymore, but we talk about the consciousness of God as a nation. We need to get back to God. Grenada needs God. If we don't have God, we want to get worse than we are now. And I'm praying by the grace of God that the authority will make it so. Don't look about the church. Let's bring the Bible, the Word of God back in our schools to our children.
Thank you very much, caller. Have a good night. Okay. Yes, Arthur, back.
Yes. One of the problems that I have, and again, I don't want to speak for anybody else but myself. Right? When I say this is my opinion. Our churches basically function within the walls that they have established. Within the parameters of the walls. Now, they are, and I'm not saying all of them are, okay? But there is need for really and truly doing outreach to people, meeting people where they are, and addressing some of the issues where they happen. Too often we just basically go to church, we clap, we sing, we have a good time. We are blessed, we are fed by the church and the activities of the church. But are we reaching out to people?
Yeah.
Are we going out in the highways and byways, in the little nooks and crannies of our beautiful country and really touching base with some of the people?
That's a very critical point you raised, and I have a good friend that says that all the time. But we have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the Beyond the Headlines.
Good night, innocent, and good night to your guests.
Welcome to the program.
It was Julius Nyeri that said some aim at the moon and further, but we should aim at the village. And I would say we should aim at the community and the family, whatever it remains semblance of family. Now the biggest problem we face, or the source of problem, is that there's hardly any sense of community anymore. Of course, there's some parents who are struggling to make ends meet, and some who have to do 2-3 jobs. It's very difficult, but at the same time, if there is a sense of community, for instance, when these people are hustling to put food on the table, they could know that the children are in healthy environment, then that would be helpful for us. We destroy possibilities for recreation. When we construct certain mega buildings, for instance, the stadium, there used to be facility for children in Gonmo, mainly Fontenot, Dabo, River Road, Fontenot, Cherry Hill, Dabo, to some extent, Bolio, Tempe and Bolio. We removed those spaces around the Queen's Park. It's not there. Then also we decimated them organization because we didn't want communists after the invasion. So we break down structures, and when it's come back to haunt us now. So I don't want to be devilish anymore, but we need to really accept that. We are, to a great extent, we are responsible for the foolishness that is happening, albeit as is an international dimension to it. But unless we really take a radical approach, go to the root and try to resolve it, by helping there are a lot of people who feel estranged, they have no sense of connection. The family are away, the mother is sending barrels and so on, and they have the goodies, but they don't have that sort of sense of, worth. So even though those who want to go to heaven, they can go, but let us stay down here for now and try and repair ourselves. Finally, most most of the ancients have said, man, know thyself, or woman, know thyself. People don't know ourselves. We've been taught to be everything else. And it starts from when we started to destroy the children from in kindergarten and so on. I mean, I used to call them the kindergarten mind destruction center based on my experience around them. We need to really arrest all these situations. And then maybe we might rediscover God as the woman say. Okay. I don't think that we need to.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much. That caller raised a very critical point there that, triggered something up here. Do you think one of the problems that our children or minors face today is the lack of love shown by parents, letting them know that they are loved and that the boys are handsome and the girls are beautiful and daddy loves you and mommy loves you, and creating that sort of cushion so that from a psychological standpoint, it would tell you that when children are brought up in that way from the formative years, that sort of bond that is developed, they find it hard to do things that will hurt mommy or daddy. And during that process, the proper concepts and cultures are put forward to the children.
Let me put it this way. When I was a teacher and I came home to my children, I really didn't want anything to do with children.
Right.
Because you had children.
You had it for the day.
For the day. Yes. And you just needed a moment to unwind.
Yeah.
They're full of energy. Yeah? You tired because you expended energy in teaching. And I had to check myself. I had to do the introspection and realize I'm actually doing more harm to my children by not giving them the attention that they need when they needed it. So they come home and they're happy to be with you and they're excited about sharing whatever might have happened in school, and they want to talk and they want homework to do, and you as a parent, you're tired.
Exhausted, you're drained.
And too often we say, oh, let's go and look at TV. Go on the computer, go on the tablet, look at my phone, right? And we're not understanding in those formative years when you're supposed to be interacting with your children, you give them over to something that does not give them the love. They are exposed to things that they should not be exposed to, and they don't even come to you and talk about it.
Yeah. We have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Violence against children, offenses against children, child abuse. And I usually ask the question, how did we get here? Not too long ago I heard about there's a country in Europe where you wouldn't be having this conversation because the
caller? Okay, we seem to have lost that caller there. Arthur, continue.
Yeah, so we have to put aside some of these gadgets and actually spend some time with our children.
Parents need to do the parenting.
We need, exactly. Not only that, just have conversations, man. Get an activity that you might be cooking, you might be sweeping the yard, or doing whatever little thing that you're doing outside your house. Get your children involved.
Yes.
Tell them, look, come on. Yes, they go grumble and it's to pull them away from the gadget and all of that. But you have to really engage them into their own development of the environment and development of themselves as individuals, and an interaction between parent and child.
Okay, we do have another caller. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening to you, sir.
My good friend. He's going to tell us about how the economic situation is creating problems.
No, you have an international license. you reached to the 8 now.
Thanks for the endorsement.
Yes. You're holding well, trust me. I'll tell you something. Listening to this conversation, that program should be taped and put in the archive. This is reach. Everything I heard is what happened. So, conform that the society is damaged. The youth are damaged. And we, not the only the youth, we are touching to get back to that straight plane because we lost in the life jungle. Let me say, so much things to say and so much things that I could say. But let me say this. If I have to give an 18-year or 20-year-old person, man or woman, a job, as opposed to giving a 40-year-old father and mother a job, I will give the 40-year-old father and mother the job because giving the 18 and 2021 is damaging the family. You're giving them power. You're taking the power from the parents and putting it in the hands of the youth, and they will control. But let me say this to you, and I've been preaching this over the years. Every successive generation have to be better off economically than the last one. If you don't do that, because when you get the divide, you'll be minusing and you'll be going right back forward. It brings us right back to the economy and leadership. They had not been looking at that over the years, so they did not prepare the adults for the young people. So we're way behind in terms of being able to take care of the youth. How do you catch up?
But caller, having said that, caller, is there hope?
Well, I don't see much hope, because when you pay attention to the behavior of our leaders, mostly I'm not only talking to the politicians, I'm talking to the business people who seem not to believe that they have a responsibility to citizens and they are accountable to the citizens. The way they behave, argue and quarrel with one another, are they really contemplating and growing the economy, building the economy, putting us, taking us out of difficulties? They're talking cost. You're talking a lot of expenditure, but where is the revenue coming from?
Okay.
There's a lot of things you want to do, yes. They're saying a lot of good things, but what are you going to do to it? The economy is not prepared for what you want to do.
Okay.
And so that is one of the problems we have. How do we get out of this? I don't know, because we're so far behind. Yeah, we're in trouble.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Thank you very much, caller. Thank you, my good friend. Ms. Ford, you've been silent. I want you to chip in with us here now. Yes, you've been very receptive.
One thing I wanted to say was when you spoke about the churches and you said, somebody said, what are the churches doing? And I smiled and I said, well, the church is not a building. The church is a living, breathing organism. The church is alive. It's not gone anywhere. So if persons want to throw shade at the church, it's almost like, okay, well, churches, we are the church. Persons who pertain to be Christians are the church. So wherever you go, you make an impact. Wherever you go, you can make a difference.
But
so
having said that,
really
Ms. Ford,
coming together.
Having said that, are you satisfied that the church, that living organism that should be mobile, are you satisfied that they're doing enough to remedy our society?
I believe that as we said, there's been a fabric breakdown along the years, but I believe the church is in a place now of preparation for what is to come. And that's really, when you go into the churches and you listen to how the Spirit of God is moving in this dispensation, it's really about preparation, for this dispensation. So persons will be, in terms of, bringing our children back and getting back to traditional values and challenging the so-called norms and cultures of our society, then, all of these things, as I said, really should be on pause and reset. So we can start to examine ourselves, examine the behaviors, examine, the reasons why our children are where they are today. And there's a lesson to be learned. There's reasons, there's answers there. The answers are all there. But the answers, as I said, are in scriptures. A lot of the answers are in scripture, but I still believe that we have to work together in a multi-sector collaborative approach to bring us to the place where we need to be for our children to be able to forge ahead, and we can have legacies, to come out of our nation. So we really have to, come together. We say we're a Christian nation, all Christians come together. but it's not just about going into a church, as my learned friend said. It's about lifestyle. It's about, examining yourself and looking at the way we live and examining, how we eat, examining how we interact with each other, examining how we deal with our children, how we deal with each other. It's a collaborative approach in every area of our lives. So we need every single area in terms of the juvenile justice system, in terms of the social services, child protection, the government, ministers, the church. Everybody has a critical role to play to get us to where we need to be. We cannot do it by ourselves. We have to work together. And that's why I said the church is not just a building that you go in on a Sunday. The church, we are the church. So you get Christians in every sector of the nation, but we have to come together and work collaboratively.
Something that I must say, some of the points that you raised, I remembered, right, doing one of the psychosocial programs with Legal Aid for youngsters who got in conflict with the law, that program called Alternatives.
That's right.
And in going through with the young men, this program was primarily for young men, and going through them psychologically and laying out to them the things that they've done in contrast and comparison to what they should be doing. And when the reality hit home, the young men were in tears, not realizing what they have done, and some of them even ask the question, but how did I get here? Right. Now I'm sitting here now and I can vividly see some of the faces, the expression on their faces when we would have delved into the offense that they committed, and they were like, how did I reach in this?
But earlier on, we were talking about the desensitizing of our young people by the music, the television, the video games,
the social media.
So you have young persons who feel that they could just bash their colleagues, or their friends, and their peers on social media, and it is a joke. Right? Until that person decides, well, look, I cannot take the shame and the embarrassment and the insults and the tearing down of the person that I am, and they would contemplate suicide.
Right.
You understand me? Now, we as adults, we do the same thing.
Yeah.
We do the same thing, and our children look at us, and they see all of that mirrored within the area of social media and so forth. And there is no empathy for the other person and how they feel and all of that. That has to change. And it has to, and I do agree with my colleague that there must be a coming together to do that.
A multi-pronged approach.
Right? There must be a multi-pronged approach. Everybody must chip in a little bit to ensure that we kind of break down some of these terrible fences that we are building. One of the other things that one of the callers mentioned earlier, and I didn't comment to it, was the issue of the facilities in our communities. Now, I have looked at community centers around Grenada, dilapidated, underutilized, and no real program to capture the attention of our young people. Instead, what we prefer to do is go home, sit in front of our television or in front of our computer, in front of our tablets and our phones, and not necessarily engage each other. We have greater means of communication, but we don't communicate. We don't sit down and have a one-to-one and look at somebody in the eye and see their body language and understand. We hide behind our gadgets and we communicate.
Our socializing patterns have changed.
Right. And we need to get that back, because that's the only way. If I come by you, that's the way I could understand you. I would say, Gordon, what's up? And you say, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you're actually good because I haven't seen you. I hide behind that social media thing, that behind the gadget. I don't see your face. I don't hear you. I don't understand.
Just to interject a little humor to this. I mean, it is said that a conductor on a bus was texting the driver to ask him if he has change in front.
Yeah, I mean, there are people within I look at go to restaurants, when I go with my wife or whatever, and you watch people texting each other. They are around the table, you know, but they are texting each other, they're texting out there, they're on their phone. There's no, we have lost that. We have lost that human touch.
A Sunday afternoon drive.
Exactly.
A Sunday afternoon drive. Exactly. You, the wife and the children, and you're driving and the wife is texting away, or the wife is driving and the husband is texting. Oh boy. There are so many things that we have just done wrong. And we have lost that human touch. We have become insensitive to our fellow men and women, and we do things and we don't care where the chips fall. Okay. And our young people are becoming the victims of all of that. I am told we have a final caller. Caller, good evening.
Yes, I have to change my name to Alpha and Omega, Force and Land.
Okay.
I listened to a comment that was made, and you were intimating about the young men and who were in trouble, and when they explained to them what they did and so on, they wanted how they got there. We read the Word of God, and sometimes if we don't understand, or we just don't want to believe what we read. No, there's a lot of things that I studied when I studied psychology. There's a lot of things that the society is calling with all kind of fancy names, but most of those things are diabolical spirits, evil forces, and we seem to don't want to entertain that kind of conversation. But there are a lot of evil forces that are impersonating people, taking charge of their lives, and when you think it's them that are doing it, it is not really them. They don't know what they're doing. It's a demonic spirit operating in that person's body. Okay. And when you say that, they will say, oh, people go use it as an excuse to do things and say, oh, not me, I'm possessed. But possession, demon possession, is a reality. You read about it in scripture, and it is a reality. And that's why I keep saying, as human beings, we need to get back in touch with our Creator and get rid of those spirits. When Jesus is in us, those spirits cannot possess us. And we are able to live a life above those things. So we have to get back to God. Get Christ in us, get the Holy Spirit in us, and helping our people to know God intimately, personally.
You are very correct, lady. Thank you very much. And as I always, challenge you to, keep praying for Grenada and pray for our people, all right? Intercede on our behalf. And, good things can happen. That in itself, Arthur and Ms. Ford, this is a conversation that has to be had. And for some reason, people are shying away from it. And quite a number of people, they are trying to, put the science into it and so forth. And so that is a conversation that has to be had. But I'm not certain if people are prepared to have that conversation, because there are folks who would tell you this last conversation that we had with this lady about demon possession and things are happening and people don't know what is happening and so forth. These things are real, but that's a conversation that has to be had. We don't have the time to have that tonight. So what I am proposing, there's another conversation that should have been had tonight as it relates to the statistics from the RGPF on minor offenses, offenses relating to minors and so forth, but due to the fact that something came up and the representative from the RGPF couldn't come, we could not delve into the statistics that are facing us now. So that is another session that we'll have sometime in the future, but it's just about time for us to wrap up. Ladies first, as always, Arthur and I are the perfect gentlemen, so we will do that. What are your wrapping up messages you'd like to disseminate there?
Wrapping up messages.
Yeah.
I really, really would love people to, as I said, examine themselves and really make a concerted effort to reach out to any one of the agencies. Persons dropping to the probation unit on a daily basis. I mean, we do referrals to different agencies, so we always would know where, our finger is on the pulse. We know where to access information and to where to refer people. We are there to help people. I would just like people to know that we are there, we are available, we are passionate about what we do, and we are there to help the nation going forward with our children. I mean, there are success stories. We have so many success stories, and there are still young people that we are working steadily with because we know that they can change. They have the ability to change. It's just sometimes the will, or sometimes their background, their circumstances, the trauma, post-traumatic stress, and all the stresses and the traumas of life, abuse, and all the things that they would have gone through. I would like persons to be very more empathetic about how they treat people. Treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. Really, look at how we treat other people. Be more patient with people, especially the two most vulnerable persons are the elderly and our young people. Think about how you would treat your mother or your father or grandparents, the elderly. And, treating young people is not something to be cast aside, but they have feelings, they have needs, they have wants. They need our support, they need our guidance. And that's what we're there to do. Just reach out to somebody today.
Arthur?
I want to make just 3 points. One, Legal Aid and Counseling Clinic is always open to give assistance to some of the issues, social issues. All right? I think they have worked assiduously over the years to ensure that various individuals, men, women, children, are dealt with in terms of some of the social issues. Secondly, there are some very, very good young people. All right, and kudos to them. They have risen above some of the issues that's happening socially, and we have to recognize them, emulate them, congratulate them, and continue to encourage and pray for them. And finally, the Bible says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. He said, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct our path.
And that's it.
That's it.
Folks, that's the program tonight, Beyond the Headlines, sort of modified one. We were supposed to have some more statistical reporting from the RGPF, but that couldn't happen. But as one of the callers said tonight, this program was rich. And I do think it's a good place to start. I don't know if it could be facilitated as regularly as it should on this media, but it's a good conversation to have, and we look forward to another conversation of a similar nature in the not too distant future. And I just want to thank you both, Ms. Ford, for joining us and sharing your wealth of experience. I want to encourage you and your colleagues, keep on pressing on. There is hope. There is hope. All is not lost. Yeah, all is not lost.
Thanks for inviting. No, it's not.
Good.
We live in hope, and we know we're going to continue to keep pressing.
That's the idea. Arthur, continue to do what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
And if everyone brightens the corner where they are, eventually the whole place will be illuminated. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being a part of the program tonight. This has been Beyond the Headlines. I've been your host, Gordon Joseph, your humble servant, thanking you for viewing and listening. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.